What's up everybody, and welcome back to another video. In this video, my plan is to try and get this thing to run. This is the JDM front converted Integra that I have. In the last video, I was able to get the engine in it, and I almost finished with everything it needed, but there were a few parts that I was waiting on. So I have those parts now, and I'm gonna go ahead and try and get it to run today. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna install a new fuel rail, because the fuel rail that's in the car right now is leaking very badly and it needs to be replaced. And then I have a power steering delete pulley kit. It comes with a pulley and a belt, and it's gonna allow me to delete the power steering pump and still run the belt. And then I'm going to pull out the K-swap chassis adapter harness that's in the car right now, and I'm going to see if I can't repair it so I can still use it. Whoever had this car before me, basically they spliced up the harness and cut it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can't repair that. And then in theory, this thing should fire up if I do those three things. Before that though, I am going to go take one of my cars to the wash bay and wash it up real quick. And then I gotta drive it over to the detail shop because it is getting cut and polished today, and the headlights are getting polished. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that, and then I will come back and start working on this Integra here. So this is the car that I'm having the paint polished and the headlights polished on. This is my 2005 Acura RSX Type S that I've had for a few years now, and this is the first time I've actually had it on the channel, and I absolutely love this car. When I got this car was bone stock, stock wheels, stock suspension, basically just completely stock. And I put the wheels and suspension on it. I did an HID conversion, and I got the windows tinted. And other than that, I haven't really done anything to it besides basic maintenance, and I've never had any issues with it at all. And this is one of my favorite cars of all time. Before I got this, I wanted one for years, and a few years ago I finally decided to spend the money and pick one up, and I got a really good deal on this. But yeah, time to stop neglecting it and get it cleaned up and go ahead and get the paint polished up, and hopefully this thing will look like a mirror again. All right, so I just got the RSX dropped off at the detail shop, and he's gonna go ahead and get started on that. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started on this. So this is where it's leaking from. You can kind of see it's all cleaned off right here. And that's because it is leaking pretty bad right there whenever I hit the key. And so I'm gonna go ahead and replace the entire system here. Basically just bought an eBay fuel rail K-swap kit. And then I'm gonna go ahead and get the pulley on here and get the belt on, and then start working on that harness. All right, so this is everything the kit came with, and this is the brand. It's just an eBay brand or something like that. It was pretty cheap for this. It was like 30 bucks or 40 bucks. And it basically comes with this bracket, the belt here, pulley, and some hardware. And there's no instructions, but I really shouldn't need any. So I see that this piece here has got a little notch and then some teeth in it. So it looks like it probably will slide up and down here. And I'm sure the pulley will probably sit on it just like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this put together and put on the car, and I'll show you guys what it looks like on the car. All right, so I got this little setup put together. Took me like literally 30 seconds. So I go over to the car here and I start to try and line this up, and it doesn't line up. And that is when I notice there's no tensioner on here. So I'm not sure how I didn't notice that to begin with, but I'm pretty sure the tensioner is going to bolt to here, and then the power steering pump, or this, would normally bolt to the tensioner. So I'm going to have to get a tensioner on there. And I do have a tensioner on this spare K20 I have over here. I'm not sure if it's the same or it's going to bolt right up, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this off real quick and see if I can use that one. Otherwise, I'm going to have to track down a tensioner that I can use. Alright, so power steering delete pulley kit is installed. So the tensioner from that spare K20 worked just fine, and the belt is all the way, or the pulley is positioned all the way down at its lowest setting. So at first I tried it somewhere in the middle, but I could not get the belt on because it was too tight, so I just slowly lowered it down until I went all the way to the bottom, and it went right on. I remember on the K20 and my other Integra, it was somewhere in the middle, so I think because the K24 is just a little taller, the pulley's got to be a little lower. But either way, that is done, and I can move on. So I'm going to go ahead and get this whole fuel system in the engine bay taken off so I can get my, my new kit installed. Alright, so first things first, I want to go ahead and get this fuel rail kit opened up. I'm pretty sure it's the same kit that I bought for my other Integra. So we'll go ahead and see everything that comes in here. This is supposed to be specific for the K-swap Integra or Civic. It comes with some section of fuel hose there. So I see we have a gauge. Cool. And let's see what else we got. Some kind of fuel fitting. Just gonna open everything up and lay it all out. Some kind of bracket, probably for the regulator. Some fittings, washers, O-rings, screws, stuff like that. Here's the actual regulator. Pretty large unit there. So it is a little different than the one on my RSX, or my Integra, my other one. Here's the actual rail, little cover plate. Some more little O-ring pieces here. These are like a flat style.
fuel bung piece, barbed fitting, 9D. This whole kit was like 40 bucks or 35 bucks or something. It's very, very cheap. But I just need to get the car to run so I can get it out of this area here in front of my shop. I can start working on another project, which I will be sharing with you guys very soon. It's a project that I've been planning for many years, and I'm finally going to be getting started on it. So yeah, this is pretty much everything the kit comes with. I'm not sure I'll be needing every last piece, but I will start assembling it for the specific needs of my car, and I will show you guys the setup that I go with. So first I'm going to go over to the car. There's like something in here. I don't know what that piece is, but first I'm going to go over to the car and start disassembling the fuel system that is on there currently. Alright, so that was quick and easy. The injectors are still in the rail, so I'll have to grab that. I'm going to check all the O-rings. I don't have replacement O-rings for the injectors, so if they look fine, I'm going to use them. If not, I'll have to see if I can't get some O-rings for them. But yeah, that's pretty much what was on the car. This fitting right here, actually in between these two pieces here, like the actual fitting was leaking itself, so I just decided to get a new fuel rail system and start over fresh. So now that this is off, I'm going to go ahead and start assembling the new one and get it on the car. All right, man, this thing looks amazing.
I'm actually super impressed.
Dude, it looks better than when after they painted it.
Yeah. This is Danilo right here. He's the one that did the work. Wow.
I don't even want to drive it anymore.
See what I mean when I leveled the paint down? Like you can kind of see like what spots have more metallic and what doesn't, but all the drips and everything are gone.
Yeah, you can see where they painted it a little bit, like right there. Wow, man, I'm actually super impressed. I'm impressed you did this in an hour.
Yeah, it doesn't take long at all, especially if you know what you're doing.
Dude, this thing looks wet. Wow. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
I really do.
Time to go get my baby dirty again, though.
I don't even want to drive it.
Yeah, even I'm surprised you kid.
Dude, it looks amazing. I didn't expect their paint job to look this good.
Yeah, this giant area right here. You remember that huge, like...
It was dripping.
Yeah, you can see it, but now it's...
You can still kind of see it a little.
Yeah, you can see where they layered that metallic heavy, but the drip is gone.
Man, they do such a quick job. Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. All right, so pretty much done, and I think it looks a lot cleaner, and hopefully it doesn't have any leaks, but if it does, with this setup at least, I will be able to address that. I still have to plug in the injectors, but the setup is this little hard line from the banjo to the rail, and there's a little soft line in between, and I just used a little worm drive hose clamp for that. And then obviously there's this fitting here, and there is a crush washer between this fitting and the rail. And then I have the gauge here, which sucks that it's backwards, but there's no other way for it to work on this. It's actually just like my other Integra, but you can read it. It is right side up. Then there's an extra fitting or extra port here that I blocked off with a little plug they had, and there's a crush washer in there. And then same thing on this side, crush washer to this fitting. Piece of hose I trimmed down, 90 here, regulator, put the plug in to the regulator on the top, and I used the two side ports. And I just put a 10mm bolt into an existing threaded hole using the bracket that it came with, and then a 90 down to the return hard line, and there's another worm drive clamp on that. So that's pretty much how I set it up. And I'm gonna see if it has any leaks or not. And I'm gonna just turn the key on right now. I have the computer plugged in, but I haven't messed with the adapter harness at all. So I'm gonna see right now if I even have fuel pressure, and if I do, then I can check for leaks now. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip the key on and see if I have pressure. Also, for some reason, there's like an alarm going off in the car. I'm gonna figure that out later, but I'm gonna go ahead and flip the key on. Then I will come out here and see. Oh, I hear leaking. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to go shut it off. We're leaking out of the return. All right, so finally got all the leaks gone. There was actually several leaks, which I will point out to you now. So first was the major leak from this return line. I guess the worm drive clamp that I had right down there was not tight enough, so I cinched it up pretty tight, and it doesn't seem to be leaking anymore. Second of all, this gauge was leaking. So what I did is I took the gauge back off, I put some Teflon tape on it, put it back on, not leaking anymore. And there's a plug down here, which was like another option for the gauge, and that plug was leaking as well. So I took the plug out. I actually had to take the rail off, and I took the plug out, put some Teflon tape on it, put it back in, not leaking. The key is on right now, so there is fuel going through the system, and so I know everything's not leaking. And then this plug right here, see it's dry, this plug was leaking as well, and at first I thought this entire regulator was leaking, but it turned out to be this plug. So what I did is I pulled that plug
out. And that plug came installed, by the way. I never took it out. I never messed with it. That's how it came when this package arrived. But I pulled the plug out, Teflon taped it, put it back in, no longer leaking. There are no leaks anywhere. Now, oddly enough, even though there is fuel going through this system, which I know for a fact because it was leaking, the gauge still reads 0. And I've tightened up the regulator, still reads 0. Possibly because there's just less than 1 PSI in it. I'm not 100% sure. This vehicle does crank over. It does not start. It doesn't even try to fire up. I actually had, this was off camera, but I had a buddy of mine put some brake cleaner in there while I blipped the throttle, and nothing. It didn't even try and fire up. So I know that there is no fuel pressure, and there's also no ignition. So obviously, I know I need to look at that adapter harness. I haven't even tried messing with it. The ECU is plugged in, but I have not messed with that adapter harness at all. So that is the next thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to remove it, or possibly even just try and keep it in there and see what I need to do. So I thought, if I wasn't mistaken, the adapter harness was supposed to come up through here as well. I'm not sure. So what I'm going to do is just take a look at that and see if I can't figure that out. Alright, so I'm here in the passenger footwell, and you can see this is the adapter harness, and these are the two O2 connectors, and then I don't know what is going on. It's kind of hard to see because it's dark. It's darker on camera than it is in person, but the part that is supposed to connect to the other shock tower is somewhere back there. I see a ton of wires have been like spliced or something. I don't know what. I see that this green wire, which I believe is for the fuel pump, is over here grounded, which this car did not come with a computer, but I did call him, and apparently he was trying to use a JDM computer. And for the JDM computers, I know there's something I'm pretty sure you have to ground this wire, so that is what is going on there. So I'm going to unground that and connect that to where it needs to go. So, and I don't have a diagram for this adapter harness, but they're pretty much all the same. I'm just going to pull up some wiring diagrams like I did last time, but I am going to go ahead and probably unplug everything and just kind of start over with this harness. See, like there's some tape right here. I don't know why. And like, where does this go? Is this the part that was supposed to be wired into? I mean, these are the, I don't even know where the factory ECU plugs are anymore. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just take a look at this real quick, and then when I've kind of figured it out, I'll get back to you guys. Alright, so I'm going to explain to you guys where I'm at with this wiring harness, because I've pretty much figured out what's going on. And I'm at the point where I have to stop tonight because I need to plug my laptop into this computer to make sure the tune is downloaded. And I just realized that my charger for my laptop is not in my laptop bag. I think my girlfriend might have taken it out, and I think it's at home. So, but this is where I'm at. So basically, this fuel pump wire was grounded to the chassis. I've ungrounded it to the chassis, and I've put it to, I believe it's A16, the fuel pump wire on the original ECU plugs. And then one of these plugs that on the adapter harness, kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can get up under here. One of these plugs on the adapter harness plugged into the original shock tower, passenger side shock tower plugs. Now they've been pulled through the firewall. They're sitting right here, and so that's why it's plugged in right here instead of on the passenger side shock tower. Now the other two plugs that go to the driver's side shock tower are actually over there, because the two plugs on the original chassis harness that sit on the driver's side shock tower have been pulled through. So they are plugged in the way they are supposed to. Now,
there's no fuel pressure on the rail according to the gauge. So I don't know if the gauge is bad. I don't know if I have no fuel pressure. I know I have fuel coming out, so I'm not sure what's going on there. And then I do know that the ECU is kicking out power to this fuel pump wire. So, or there is power right there. So I know that's good. It does not crank, it does not start. It doesn't even try to start. So I think I have no ignition for whatever reason. And that's why I need to check what's going on inside this computer, and then maybe check to see if I have crank signal and all that good stuff. So I'm calling it for tonight. I'm coming back tomorrow. I'm gonna have my laptop plugged into this, and then I will go from there.
All right, so it's been like 2 days since I worked on the Integra here, and I'm basically at a standstill right now because I found out that my girlfriend broke the laptop charger. So I have one on order from Amazon. It should be here at my house anyway in like a day or two. So I'm kind of just waiting on that to plug it into the ECU so I can figure out exactly what's going on with the tune or see if I have ignition and all that stuff. So for now I'm just kind of on standstill, but we did take in a EK Civic that has LS Webs on it, and it's just a clapped out Civic. It's going right to the auction. But it has decent tires on it, and they're gonna let me, they're gonna allow me to take the tires off and put it on my LS Webs. My LS Webs are cleaner than theirs, or that Civic. That Civic's wheels are like all sanded down or something. But I'm gonna swap the tires out so that my car has good tires at least, and it saves me a little bit of money. So I'm gonna get started on that, and I'll show you guys the Civic. And then before I put the tires onto my wheels, I'm actually taking my wheels up to a detailer. I'm going to put it in his shop. It's the same detailer that detailed the wheels on the Element, and he's going to go ahead and do these wheels for me too. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that Civic and get started on those tires. So this is that EK that we just took in on trade, and we don't take in too many of these older Hondas anymore. These are kind of like a dying breed. This actually has like a D16 Y7 in it, and it's a 5-speed converted car. So it's actually not in too bad a condition. It's pretty clean. But I thought about buying it, and I was like, nah, I got too many cars. I have some other things I got to spend my money on pretty soon. So I was like, you know what? And I wasn't the only one that thought about buying this thing. There was a couple people. But the tires are decent. And they're not bad at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and take these tires and put them on my wheels, and put my tires on these wheels, and then get this thing over to the auction row. But yeah, before I put my tires on, of course I am gonna go get them polished up. Pretty excited about that. It's gonna be the only clean thing on the car. But yeah, let's get started on pulling these tires off. Well, that took about 30 minutes or so, but I got my old tires onto these wheels, and I got the tires that were on these wheels sitting in a stack over here. And these tires aren't terrible. They're like 5 or 6 years old, and they have a little bit of cracking, but there's still tread on them. They all hold air, so you know, I'm not too worried about whoever buys this thing. But these are the tires that came off it. And these ones were in the back. They're like basically brand new. These ones were in the front. They're a little bit more worn, but they're all matching tire dates, and they're all matching brands, so they are a set. I'll just put these in the rear, and I'll put these in the front. And then here are the wheels. And you really can't tell on camera too much because it's kind of shiny here, but they're pretty dirty. These things were sitting outside for I don't know how long, and they're pretty dirty, but they're relatively in good condition. And he's gonna go ahead and polish these up, get them all cleaned off for me. And the next time you guys see these, hopefully they will look as brand new as they can be. All right, guys, so I'm here working on the Integra. It's been a few days. I've not been recording, but I've just been trying to figure out why this thing won't start. It's been an electrical nightmare. There has all kinds of issues. It's not just one issue, there's been multiple issues, and I'm going to share with you guys exactly what I've figured out up to this point. But it still doesn't start. I am not 100% sure why, but I'm a lot closer than I was. And so I'm just going to share with you guys exactly what I've done to this point. Alright guys, so there has been multiple issues with this car, and I tried to basically just tackle them one at a time. So what I started with was, I knew there was some kind of alarm going off on this car. When I had the key out of the car and opened the door, the hazard lights were going off, and there was like a beeping noise going on. There was some kind of alarm installed on this car, and it was all wired into a lot of this column wiring and this under dash wiring here. So, and it went all the way up over the fuse box. It tied into several wires in several different harnesses. It was a complete nightmare. It was a real hack job. So I took my time and I got this whole thing removed here. This is most of it. There was more of it, but this whole mess here, and I haven't fixed any of the wiring 100% in the car, but I've attached the wires back to where they were supposed to go, and when I get the thing to start, I will actually make those wiring repairs correct. But I got this thing ripped out. The hazard stopped going off. The alarm stopped going off, obviously, because it's sitting here. So that was that issue, and which I thought that was potentially the entire issue. I thought maybe it was some kind of alarm system causing the car not to start, so I had to at least start there. And then what I did was, with my computer plugged in, okay, and Honda open with the key on, okay, it says ignition on down here, okay, but it was saying ignition off before. So I thought that maybe the ignition was bad. I went ahead and tested a lot of the wires here, or the pins. These are all the different pins for the ignition. Everything was working the way it was supposed to. Okay, the power was going to the terminals when I was cranking it over, and the starter was working. So I have the main relay here. One thing I noticed about this main relay is it was buzzing when I had the key on. Okay, this is it right here. It was buzzing. It was like vibrating. So I was like, that doesn't seem right. So I went to the parts store. They had one in stock. Okay, with my parts discount, it was like 50 bucks. It's not bad at all. When I put that in, it wasn't buzzing anymore. So I knew I was probably getting a little bit closer, but it still said ignition off down here. Okay, and then there was originally a map uploaded to this ECU here, but I erased it thinking that maybe it was corrupted or something, and I tried to put a new map on there, and this upload button right here, okay, when you hit upload and it saves calibration, it was not letting me do that. It was saying upload failed, and I had to do a bunch of reading online. I was going into different forums. I was on Honda's website. They said to check a couple things, including the ground on the engine harness. So that is what I did. I went out. It's kind of a tight fit. I went out here and I took my my voltage reader, and this was originally bolted right here, and it had 4 volts. The entire engine block has 12 volts of ground, but this wire had only 4 volts of ground because it is getting backfed with 8 volts of positive. And I'm not sure why, haven't figured that out yet, but I do know that when I took a jumper harness straight to ground and hooked it up to here, and now it reads 12 volts ground, it let me upload into, it let me save the calibration in Honda. So now I could actually, now I knew I had a map loaded onto the ECU, so that
wasn't an issue. And then there were a couple other issues that I still have. The fuel pump is not getting power sending out of the ECU. So I have a positive wire, which is right here, going straight to the fuel pump. And I know the fuel pump is kicking on because I can undo this and there's fuel coming out. And then if I take the wire off, the fuel stops coming out. So I know the fuel pump works. But what's odd is this fuel gauge still reads 0. And this is not the first fuel gauge I put on. The other fuel gauge that was originally from this kit was reading 0, so I thought maybe the gauge was bad, eBay part, cheap, whatever. So I put this gauge on, and this gauge also reads 0. And I've already tried messing around with the regulator. It's all the way tight. It's basically not letting any fuel through, and it still reads 0. And I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. I pulled the spark plugs out. The spark plugs are dry. There's no fuel on them whatsoever. I put gas in here. I had somebody else put gas in here while I hit the throttle, and I cranked it over. Nothing. Didn't even try and start. See, I got gas right here. So it didn't even try and start at all. So that tells me not only do I not have fuel, I have no injector, but I also have no ignition. So I went to the main supplier of ignition. I went to the crank. Now this is a K24 engine. So I originally thought maybe the crank sensor was the problem because this is what came with the car. It was a K24 crank sensor. This is the exact one here. I just put it on this engine because I grabbed the K20 sensor off this engine. But this is a jumper harness, and this sensor and this jumper harness were on the car originally. And so I swapped a K20 sensor that was on this engine onto this Integra over here, thinking that maybe that would help. And that doesn't seem to make any difference at all. I can see on HON data when I'm data logging that I have RPM when I'm cranking. I actually have injector pulse too on HON data, and I have throttle position. The throttle is reading right. It's 0 when I'm off, 100 when I'm on. I'm really, really close. So I'm actually kind of stumped and kind of pulling my hair out. K-swaps are supposed to be just plug and play. Take an engine harness, plug it into your adapter harness, plug all that into the ECU. A couple of the shock tower plugs get plugged into, and your fuel pump wire gets hooked up, and that's it. That's all it really needs to run. So, kind of pulling my hair out here. I looked up maybe the K24, coil packs and injectors aren't compatible, but from what I've been reading on the forums, that doesn't seem to be the case. They should be compatible. So, I'm kind of out of ideas, and I'm probably going to put a pause on this maybe for a little bit just to clear my head. And if anyone has any ideas, please let me know in the comments if you've been through this before. I know if you go on Google, you will see just a ton of no injector, no crank forums for K-swaps. I'm not the first person to deal with this. So if anyone has any ideas, let me know. I've checked all the fuses. Everything seems good. So, but yeah, that's basically where I'm at with the car currently. And I'm pretty close. I'm a lot closer than I was. At least I have a map uploaded on the ECU now. So, and also another thing is the battery light was staying on the dash. And it was staying on with the key out. When I put the key into the ignition, it would go off. So the first thing I did was I came over here, I unplugged the alternator plug, didn't do anything, it was still on the dash. So I went to the adapter harness and I cut the wire that they had wired into the original ECU plugs from the adapter harness. The adapter harness has a charge light wire that's supposed to get wired into the original chassis harness. I cut that, the light's out. So I don't know if they had it to the wrong wire. I have no idea. But yeah, like I said, if anyone has any ideas, please let me know. I'm kind of stumped at this point. I'm sure I'll get it, but this is where I'm at, so.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. I really wanted to get this thing running before the end of the video, but I just don't think it's gonna happen. It's already going on kind of long. Please like this video and leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys next time.